Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Yeonni, and for this week's video, I am finally sharing my Notion templates, the way I use Notion to apply for my PhD programs and to get into my PhD program of choice. So I mentioned this Notion setup thing when I announced to all of you that I got into my PhD program, and it was like a dream come true. Still is, still crazy that it's happening in like a month essentially. I'm getting ready to move. Anyway, I get into those things in different videos, but yes, I know it's a little bit late, so I do apologize, but I did want to share my Notion setup with you all who are in the process of applying to not only PhD programs, which is maybe grad school or just university, college in general. I think the way that I built this could be useful for anyone who is applying for some sort of higher level university, college application process. Hopefully you'll find this video helpful. I do want to make 3 quick disclaimers of sorts before we get into the video. So first things first, so this is exactly the setup that I used when I was applying to PhD programs last year. The only thing that's changed is I took out the names of the schools I applied to, took out the names of my obviously professors that I've contacted for recommendation letters, professors at universities that I've spoken to, just kind of like identifying factors just for the sake of confidentiality. Number 2, when we get to the monthly tasks area, you'll see it in a little bit. I do start this planning process with using Notion from August 2021. So just to let you know, that means from January to July, basically I did 2 things. 2 things, kind of 3 things, but it's basically 2 things. 1, I started doing some general research on what I need to do to apply for PhD programs. What are the different elements? What kind of program do I even want to apply to? Why do I want to apply to it? So like the first half of the year last year was spent on general research. And while I was doing that, I was doing the second thing, which was preparing for, and then I guess that's like the third thing there. And I also took my GRE exam. The GRE exam is a standardized exam, kind of like the SATs when you're in high school to get into college. So GRE is for grad school application process. And depending on which program, which school you're applying to, it might require the GRE. Some programs and schools may not. So I would highly recommend make sure you do your own research on what your specific program that you're applying to is requesting or requiring from you. So from the monthly tasks, we'll start from August 2021, which you'll see. And the third disclaimer I wanted to say quickly is this is what I use to help me with my process. I didn't create this to share it with other people. I made this for me because this whole process can be really overwhelming. There's a lot of different elements, variables, deadlines, and timelines, and documents and things you have to remember. So as someone who likes to stay as organized as possible, to help me alleviate that kind of anxiety that I have, I use this template. So I specifically use this template for myself to apply to counseling and clinical psychology PhD programs. And that is a disclaimer that I want to let you know that it worked for me to get into my program of choice, which I'm so excited about. But you know, it may work for you, it may not work for you. It's just an additional resource to help you with organization and managing timelines and deadlines. With that said, I really do think this will be helpful. Let me start sharing my screen and I'll show you all what I'm talking about. Alright, so if I did this correctly, I should be sharing my screen, hopefully. So as you can see, you've probably seen these kinds of pages before. This is on the Notion app. You can go to your Google search bar, type in Notion. You should be able to download the free version for Mac products or Windows products. It's very intuitive. It's totally free to use. So that's what I'm using right now. And then I generally like to have some sort of like a clean but visually aesthetic setup for my life essentially. So even for my Notion, I went here to change cover to kind of find like a studious looking background here. Also change my icon. I don't know if this is a university or a hospital, but it looks like a school. So I also, you know, made that look kind of nice. I titled this page as PhD application process. And underneath it, it might be a little bit cheesy, but I did put in a little like reminder to myself because I will be opening this page multiple times, potentially hundreds of times for the next foreseeable months, right? So I wrote, breathe, everything will be okay, one task at a time, one day at a time, believe in yourself. And yes, it's cheesy, but it really did help me a lot to read that and to remind myself to breathe, because a lot of the times when my anxiety is at an all-time high, I do forget to breathe at times. That has happened. So, with Notion, you can personalize it any way you want, whatever helps you. If you want to put in like a soundtrack, put in your Spotify playlist in here to play soothing music as you enter this Notion page. It's really up to you, which is the best thing about Notion. I personally like to keep things quite simple, so this is what I'm working with. So below that, you'll see 3 different categories. First is the schools list, second is the monthly tasks, and the third is the PhD app doc dump. So let's start with that last one. I do think there could be a better name for it than the PhD app doc dump, but that is what we have for now. That is what I used. So I first built this out to be a place to dump essentially all of the important documents that I'll need for the application process. So what kind of things do we need? Potentially the CV/resume, cover letters, your personal statement. And if you know how to write a good personal statement, I've learned over time that you need to have a generalized personal statement, and also you need a separate individualized personal statement for each of the schools and programs that you're applying to. Any other supplementary documents that these programs might want. So my initial plan, right, was to dump all of those documents into that. I'm not opening it right now because all those documents are still in there. I haven't erased them, and I don't really feel like showing all of that to the world. So trust me, they're all in there. But I actually ended up using Google Drive rather than this part of the Notion template. And I'm just showing you this to let you know that the other cool thing about Notion is you don't have to keep what you originally built out. You can adjust your template and what you've built out to work best for whatever your project goal is. And for me, my project was to apply to PhD programs in the most seemingly smooth and organized way. So for me, this actually didn't work out, so I used Google Drive. It was easier for me to just keep everything organized in there. So if you're the type of person who likes to keep everything in one place, because I get that, then you could totally do that in Notion as well, which is why I'm telling you all about this. So there's the PhD app doc dump. So let's go back to the first one, the schools list, and we can go inside. All right, so schools list. I did apply to 11 schools, but I just kind of left one here as a template for now. So my different tabs are school, program, state, because when you apply to grad schools, a lot of the times, well, it's so different for everyone, right? For at least me personally, there were a few states that I was looking at that I was interested in, and what state I was interested in depended on what programs were offered in the schools in those states, plus what faculty of interest were in those programs and schools. So here you can see faculty of interest right here, and the deadline, when are applications due, the mega list of schools that I would be applying to, where are they, which professors are there, and what is the application status. So here, application status. So let's say, you have a new school that you're interested in like the brainstorming process, right? So school B, what programs are there? And depending on what kind of program you're applying to, you can customize this. For me, it was one of 3: counseling psychology, clinical psychology, or a PsyD program, which is another type of clinical psychology doctorate degree. So let's say school B is a clinical psychology program. State, these are the 4 states that I applied to when I was applying: New York, California, Boston, and Maryland. So let's say this school is in California, and then let's say the deadline was December. We're in the future now, so we have to go back, but let's say that deadline was December 1st. So by looking at this, I can see that, okay, school B's application is due sooner than school A. So maybe when I'm like writing personal statements, I would prioritize school B first to make sure that is done. Faculty of interest. So this also really depends on what program you're applying to. For example, like a master's degree, at least for me when I got my master's in social work, I did not need to indicate a faculty of interest. But from the research that I've done, when you apply to PhD programs, because these programs are a lot more specialized, there is an element of you need to know who the faculty are in these programs, who you could potentially see yourself working with, like one-on-one working with. So this was a great way for me to figuring out my schools list at the end of the day, because if I didn't have a faculty of interest, so a faculty member in that school or program who is doing research on things that I'm interested in potentially doing research in, then I would not apply to that school because it would not be a good fit. So the 11 programs that I ended up choosing at the end of the schools list process All of them had the programs that I wanted, counseling psych, clinical psych, or clinical psych PsyD, and they all had 1 or 2 faculty in their programs that were doing research that I was very, very interested in learning more about and doing research on myself. So doctor, blah, blah. And then let's say school B doesn't have a faculty of interest, then I would not apply there. Unless, like I said, you're in a master's degree program or you're in a program that lets you know you don't have to indicate a faculty of interest. Then if that's the case, maybe you can say not applicable, right? Application status, you see there is not submitted, submitted, accepted, rejected, waitlisted. So like you're gonna need to know where your application status is, right? What the deadlines are all throughout the next few months of the application process. So this schools list is very important. It's gonna be coming up multiple times all throughout the next few months. So initially, you know, when you're starting out, obviously nothing is submitted yet because it is the beginning of this whole process. So that is the schools list. I highly, highly recommend making this because like I said, it's gonna come in extremely handy. So let's go back to this main page, and then now we're gonna get into the holy grail. This monthly tasks thing I made helped me so much. So there's a lot of months to go through. So let's not chit chat anymore and get into it. So monthly tasks. So as you can see, I started using Notion to organize, and I built this out starting from August 2021 all the way to April 2022. So April 15th is the final deadline for applicants who have been accepted into programs to let the programs know that they will be attending or not. I'm pretty sure that is a hard date for most grad school programs, April 15th, which is why when I built this, before August obviously, I think I built this in July to start using in August, but anywho, I built it from August all the way to April. So monthly tasks, once again, it's a very simple looking page. I like things simple, but you know, to make it a little more interesting visually, I did change the icons to cute little fruits and flowers because, I don't know, make the process a little bit of fun, I guess. So let's start with August. So August is when I started like really deeply, like seriously starting the application preparation process. So month highlight, this is where I would put in like, do your best, you got it, you know. This month I ended up not using it, but it's fine, it's up to you. And then so I would start with the title, a little bit of a reminder or something, tasks, like the important tasks that I need to do and check off for that month. I added in a calendar, which is important to know when deadlines are. Comes in a lot more handy when the deadlines start coming up in like November and December. And yeah, so August, the things that I did, let me uncheck these so we can read it. Finalize schools list. So look at FOIs, faculty of interest. So August, one of my main tasks was to create my final list of schools. And then obviously that also means that there are faculty of interest that are at each of those schools. The second task that was important for me to complete in August was to begin working on personal statements. And then the third thing was to collect unofficial transcripts. So usually unofficial transcripts you can just download and request and download from your institution. So I just thought it would be good to have it with me in case some schools don't request the official ones. Actually, even in the schools that I applied to, some schools did not request official transcripts. They said if I am admitted, then they will request the official ones to verify that I like didn't lie in my unofficial ones or something. So this came out very helpful to just have that with me. This is another thing that I don't have to think about later on down the line when things get really chaotic. So I finalized my school list, I began working on personal statements, and I collected all my unofficial transcripts. So transcript from my undergrad and transcript from my master's degree program at NYU. Those I had downloaded and with me. And so that's done with August, and you can move on to September. So September, things are starting to kind of build up, right? So there are more tasks this month. As you can see, the template is generally the same for each of the months, but I'll show you. Starts off, once again, monthly highlight. I forgot to do it. It's fine. Main tasks, I have the calendar here. And then I've also started writing in who would be my recommendation writers. And then I also started writing in who are the faculty of interest and what are their research interests. So let's move back to the top. And before we go into the tasks, calendar, obviously important for deadlines. recommendation writers. August, September, I started thinking of who could I ask to write my recommendation. And this is a good time to reach out to those people, because once it becomes application time, like October, November, December, these professors could be receiving so many requests for recommendation letters. So from my research, I learned that it's best to reach out to them as soon as you know your school's list, and then ask them, hey, I'm applying to grad school. Could I ask you for a recommendation letter in a few months? Just wanted to reach out and ask you in advance. I just think it is the respectful thing to do, and I think professors appreciate that. So I had 3 recommendation writers, and eventually that did become 4. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So how I started that off with is, first, who are they? What's their title? Clinical psychologist, professor. And these are the actual people who wrote my recommendation letters. Who are they? What is their association with you? What is their contact? Requested ? Completed ? This is another thing that'll come in handy to copy and paste all throughout the rest of the year, because you'll keep having to check in with them, to be honest, because they're busy and it's the right thing to do. So Dr. A was a clinical psychologist, professor, and he was the PI, or the principal investigator, of the research lab that I was working for. So he was my boss / manager. And then Dr. B is a licensed clinical social worker, an assistant professor. She was my professor from graduate school. Dr. C is a licensed clinical social worker. He was a professor from my graduate school, and I also worked for him as a graduate research associate. So I wrote all of that down. And then requested, the options are yes, no, have I asked them yet, sent out that initial email, and then completed, right? Or have they done it yet? So just a way to track if they are writing their letters. And then faculty of interest notes. So this is something that you don't have to do, but when it comes to at least PhD programs, I learned that some prospective students like to reach out to potential faculty of interest before even applying. And they do that for 2 reasons. I think one, just to ask, are you even accepting students this year? Because a lot of the times professors accept 1 or 2 students per year. So it's very, very competitive, and they might not have updated their school yet if they're accepting students or not. So it would be a total waste of time if you spent all this time and effort applying to a school to work with a professor who is not accepting any students that year. So that's a good way to figure out your school's list. Are they even accepting people? And 2, I think it does make a positive, a good impression to be like, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing, and I'm being proactive about it. And the response I got from faculty was there were 3 potential responses to me reaching out to these professors before application season. 1, they never responded. They're busy, I understand. 2, they responded, but let me know that, they don't like to talk to applicants before the application season, because it is only fair to, review my application with everyone else. It would be unfair to other people who didn't reach out to them to get to know an applicant beforehand and form this impression of them before the actual application season. So yeah, I respect that for sure. So some professors were like that. But they were so kind, and they were like, well, you sound really great. Make sure you apply, and I would love to work with you. Not as a promise, but still apply. You sound like a good candidate, and I'll consider accepting you at that time. I'll consider getting to know you at that time. And then the third response, which I personally didn't get, but I've heard does happen, is the scenario that I guess a lot of people would want, where you develop a relationship with a potential faculty of interest even before application season, where you could have a pre-interview. You could Skype or call with them and get to know them beforehand. And that didn't happen with me, with any of the professors that I reached out to, but I have heard from forums where other applicants had done that, and it either helped them to get an interview during application season, or 2, even if they didn't get an interview and didn't get into the program, they got a potential job offer from that professor, a volunteer opportunity. So at the end of the day, I think it is worthwhile to reach out. The worst thing that can happen is they don't respond to you, and that's totally understandable because, like I said, these professors are very busy. So that's where I used this faculty of interest notes. Which school, who's the professor, what's their contact, have I contacted them or not, yes or no. And then when you go into their pages on the and the institution's websites, you can look into what is their research interest. So for example, this person was multicultural counseling, Asian American psychology, clearly very aligned with what I was interested in. And then notes. This is where you could put in, sometimes institutions have certain instructions that I think are important. This school said first contact admission office before contacting the professor. So I wanted to make sure that I contacted the office first before attempting to contact the professor, because I didn't want to be rude, especially if it's written on their website. You should know the school and programs websites inside and out. Make sure you're not being redundant in your questions to the admissions office or the professors. Show them that you've done your research and you're interested, in being in their program. And then so the tasks that I had were start all official online docs. So what are official online docs? I think I meant apps. So all the online applications, make an account in each of these schools' online application portals, and then reach out to recommendation writers, which I did. Reach out to potential FOIs, which I did. Continue and / finish up personal statement drafts. I've been working on this since the beginning of August, right? And then draft emails to each of the faculty of interest. Make sure that it is concise, to the point, friendly, not too pushy or too desperate, essentially. And then also draft recommendation letter request emails to professors. So I like to draft out emails on like a document before I actually send it out to people and read it over a few times, especially when it's really important things like applying to grad school. So that is my September. Whew, okay, we are on to October 2021 month highlight. I wrote, alrighty, let's do this. So before we go into the tasks, once again, we have the calendar here. And then here I have tracking for letter of recommendation. So this, we've already seen this before, right? I just copy the previous month, paste it into this one, and see what is the process now. So the only thing that's changed now is instead of asking them to write the recommendation letter, at this point they would have said yes or no, hopefully. When you start an online application through university's portal, there are links that you can send directly to your recommendation writer's email. So link, has it been sent or not? And then, tracking Dr. A, B, C, have they started the letter? Are they in progress? Have they completed the letter? And you would track that right here. And then transcripts tracking. So depending on the school that you're applying to, so like I said, some of them want the unofficial transcripts, some of them want the official transcripts. So with that said, this is a great way to track which schools want what. So school A, what is this? Need to send, so like official transcripts essentially. And I wrote no, and I copy pasted what was on their website about transcripts. Did I upload it to the application? Did I send it to the email that they wanted? I said yes. And then progress, like making sure I keep notes of where I am with tracking. And then after that is the GRE tracking. So the test, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, does the school even require it? Yes, no. Did I send it? Yes, no. And notes is kind of where I can write in the notes. So for the example here, you can see that school A did require the GRE. So I ordered my scores on October 12th to be sent directly to the institution. And then school B was waived for 2022. So I don't have to do anything for that. And then app completion status. This is where that school list comes in. And I'd have all of the schools that I'm applying to here. Progress, like have I not started on the application? Am I progressing on the application? Have I completed the application? And then I also put in a review process here. So reviewed, so first review. So have I reviewed my application yet? No, I just input all the answers. I'll review it later. And have I done my first review? Yes. And then after only my final review, I would send the application. So I kind of like to build these systems in, that way I remember to review things like the application. And then notes, everything completed besides personal statement and final signature. So I think I've completed all the demographic information and other things that I want, uploading my CV and stuff like that. So that is October. And then my tasks were request official transcripts. I've done that. Edit, review personal statements, start all online applications, track all transcripts, make sure that they're all uploaded, sent, and received by the institution. Track letters of recommendation and send out the letter of recommendation links to each of the professors that are writing the letters. So there's a lot to do, but once you have it all written in front of you and you can just check off the boxes, it really does make things feel more doable and feel way more put together, like, all right, I've done everything I need to do for this month. There's nothing else I can do. And now we are in November. So November, some schools have deadlines in November. It's important to remember the deadlines of the application. So November, once again, task list, calendar, app completion status. These are all the same from the previous month. So school A, have I not started? I should have started on the app by this point. Is it in progress? Is it submitted? So I submitted. I've done the final review and notes completed fully. I've fully completed everything about that application. All I need to do is submit it. All right, and letter of recommendation tracking. So all of my schools, I've sent the links out to everyone by this point. How's everyone doing when it comes to their process, right? So Dr. A has completed everything. Dr. B has completed everything. Dr. C, for whatever reason, has only completed school F. And by this point, you start reaching out to the professor. Hey, Dr. C, just wanted to check in, how are things? Thank you so much for writing my letter of recommendation. I really appreciate it. Kind of like a little nudge, nudge. Unfortunately for me personally, Dr. C never responded and kind of disappeared. So thankfully, I had a coworker who is a neuropathic doctor that I've been working with in my research shop. She's incredible, and she agreed to come in at 11th hour, and she agreed to write the recommendation letters for half of my programs, a week before they were due. And if I could make a recommendation, I would say have a backup recommendation writer in mind, just in case for things like this to happen. I did not expect this to happen when it came to Dr. C and my letter from him, but thankfully Dr. D came in clutch and really, really helped me with the process. But yeah, I would say have a backup person just in case things like this do happen, because they do. And then last but not least, transcripts tracking. So it's all the same as before. We're tracking all the different elements, making sure that nothing falls through the cracks. November, my tasks were finalize all applications, check in with letter writers, so parentheses Dr. C, hey Dr. C, what's going on? And submit all November applications. I had an application due on the 15th of November, so just letting myself know, and I submitted that in November. And that will be in this calendar here as well. And then December, finally, last month of actively submitting applications. So this one is pretty simple here. As you can see, monthly highlight, tasks, and the app review status. So how are my applications going? So here I have name, status, and reviewed. So final review completed, and then status. So where are we now? No answer so far. Interview scheduled, rejected. Some schools actually started getting back to applicants in December, so that's why I made this in December already, just in case. So I would write all of my schools that I've applied to, and for me, all of them did say no answer for December because I didn't hear back until January, essentially. Speaking of, it's the new year. Let's go to January after December, right? You've already submitted all your applications. Now it is the waiting phase. Now it is the phase that I think is even more stressful and so aggravating than the actual putting together of the application portion, because you can feel like you're in control most of the time when you're doing the applications. You just have to do your part and you will have successfully applied to these programs. Now it's the review process. Now you've given them everything, all of your hard work, and now it's on their table to review. So personally, it was really stressful. So January, here we are, month highlight, tasks, and app review status. So these are my original notes from my schools depending on what their status was. So let's start with school B. No answer is the status. Notes rumblings. When I write rumblings, it means that I'm seeing around forums, mostly Grad Cafe, that people are starting to hear back from schools, but I haven't gotten any notice yet. And then school C, rejected. There were schools that were straight up nope, not at all. They don't even want to interview me. And I was like, okay, at least they're clear. Because school D, soft rejections are something that I learned about this whole process that is so stressful. And once again, disclaimer, this could be more of a PhD program thing, not a master's degree program thing, because I didn't know about this when I was applying to my master's degree. But essentially, my notes say, we'll be sending out invites still. They've been interviewing since December, non for me. So it's like rumblings, but also kind of that gut feeling of, I feel like if I haven't gotten through that first or second round of interviews and they haven't reached out to me, I'm just someone that is going to be rejected. So that is what a soft rejection is. And then as you can see, school A, I wrote this here February 3rd, 2022, screaming because I got an interview from school A, and it was really, really exciting, like crazy exciting to have been called back for an interview. I was so thankful to have gotten an interview at this time. So January calendar, like, you know, if I had an interview in January, I would make sure to put that in my calendar. And then actually, this is the last one, February, because February was a crazy month for me. So month highlight, task, app review status, and these are actually the 11 schools and my results. And I thought it'd be interesting to put this in here to show you in the last month here. So school A through K, so 11 schools, and these were my statuses at the end of February. So we'll start from the bottom. So HIJK, I was rejected. 4 schools, I was straight up rejected, email right away, or like an email to check your portal, and then, oh, you've been rejected. So school H let everyone know by mass email, like, hey, if you haven't gotten an interview, you are rejected. Gotcha. School I, portal update. That's the one where they're like, hey, check your portal, something's changed. And then they're like, we don't want you. Got it. School J said to respond late Feb into March. I think at the end of this whole process, I changed it to rejected because they never got back to me. They never officially rejected me. So I was like, well, at this point it's a rejection because I'm going somewhere else. It doesn't matter. And school K received generic email on January 5th saying all interview requests have been sent out. So if I haven't gotten one, I've clearly been rejected. And then school E through G, 3 schools were soft rejections. Seems like it's a no. Official interview dates were announced, but I didn't know about it. I found out there are other people who had gotten those emails. School F, rumblings once again of other people haven't gotten in, having interviews. I didn't get anything. School G, some rumblings. Apparently official interview date is February 15th. I didn't get that email, so I'm not getting an interview. So soft rejection. And then 2 schools were limbo. So what did I write here? Limbo, not interviewed, but not yet rejected. So school C and D were kind of like, they're still interviewing and they're going to be interviewing, but it's like, I don't know where my status is, right? No one knows. It was just very confusing. So I believe these 5 schools, I never got like an official rejection, but they didn't accept me either. And then finally, last but not least, school A and school B. After completing the interviews in February, I was accepted to both programs, which it blew my mind. I could not believe that I was able to get 2 interviews, and also, I could not believe I got into my dream program out of one of those interviews. The other one was incredible as well. To me, it really, when I was comparing the 2 programs, it really came down to the financial aid and support, and also the fit and the match of the school program. So yeah, so this was all of my efforts of the past whatever months, all culminating into these results. And at the end of the day, I just feel so grateful and blessed to have gotten the interviews that I got, plus the acceptances. It's incredible. March and April look exactly the same, basically after I found out in February, because I did the interview for school A, so Columbia, on February 3rd, and I found out like 2 weeks later in February that I'd gotten the position. It kind of sounds like a job. I've gotten in. I was accepted. So after that, I, to be honest, never wanted to open this Notion again. But if I had to continue interviewing and waiting, the March, monitor email for interview details, monitor email for responses. That is basically it for March and April. And April 15th, respond to all schools, right? So that is the end of the application cycle on April 15th. Whew. But yes, so let's go back to the home page. And here we are back to the home page. It's simple enough, but I feel like I've built it in a way that has all the details that I need, all the little things that I need to remember, and hopefully going through the months with me and kind of sharing with you the things that I did research on, that I did and didn't do. You were able to gain a deeper insight into what this application process was like for me. Once again, depending on what program you're applying to, it could look completely different, but at least for me, applying to psychology PhD programs, this worked out so well, helped me to stay organized, make sure to not forget anything, and at the end of the day, I was able to get into my dream psychology PhD program ever. So yeah, I hope you all found this video helpful. Thank you to those of you who continuously DM'd me on Instagram, left those comments reminding me to upload this video. I knew it would be kind of a lot to sit down and film and edit it, but I know that it will be so helpful to those who need this kind of video. I felt so alone at times trying to do the research on my own. There's so much information out there. It was so overwhelming. So hopefully this video was helpful in answering some of those questions. If you do have more questions, I'm thinking of doing a Q&A video specifically on any questions that might have come up for you while you're watching this video. I'm probably going to put it up on my Instagram and make that one of my videos coming up in the next few weeks. Your questions specifically about PhD applications, and hopefully that can help you some more. So with all that said, if you've watched this far, please give this video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. You can leave an emoji. You can tell me what you had for lunch today. You can say thank you if this helped you. You don't have to thank me, obviously. You can, I don't know, whatever. Please show me some appreciation. This was a lot to film, but I feel happy to have done it. I really hope it helps anyone out there to feel a little less alone in this very interesting process called grad school application process. With all that said, I hope you are taking care of yourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, in all of those important ways, and I will see you in the very next video. Bye!